Good afternoon, friends. My wife and I were on the verge of launching out into the wilderness. And she said, "What did you say?" I couldn't believe I said it. What was coming out of my mouth? A suggestion that we root ourselves up out of the city, transplant ourselves out into the wilderness and have a desert wilderness type experience. That's what John the Baptist had in Luke 1:80. Said he was in the wilderness, in the desert, until his showing forth unto Israel. And when John the Baptist, after living his early years out in that desert, that man came out of there a solid man with a mission and a purpose. I had no mission, I had no purpose, and I wanted one. I was so sick of living an indefinite, nebulous, chaotic, miserable life. Darlene had decided to go back to graduate school. She was going to get her master's degree in art history. I decided if I didn't change, something didn't change, I was going to die. So when her father died, went up to visit the 20 acres, and I saw a bag of garbage that someone had left. I told Darlene, I said, "Look, if we don't move up here, this place is going to become a garbage dump." And so I suggested that we consider moving out into the wilderness. And Darlene, after thinking about the idea, we kicked it around for a while. She was all for it. So we began to think, how are we going to live? There's no house, there's no anything, but we had a Ford station wagon, and we would live in that station wagon. No creature comforts, right? No bathroom, no shower in a car. But the thought of being, trying to find ways to work around all these challenges, it sounded exciting, and in the doing of it, it was. We ended up taking our baths in the creek. So this is the creek where we took our bath. When Darlene and we moved up here, we were living in a car. Darlene was trying to work the soil to begin a garden. I had a book trying to build a little cabin, and it was the time, at the end of the day, we needed a bath. Well, that's for later. But we ended up finding ways where we could live off the land, where we could live in our car, where we could get by. They say a house is not a home. A house can be a golden palace, but not a home. You can have a home in a station wagon. And I think those early days in that station wagon, Darlene and I began to cultivate a better relationship and friendship. Now, God wasn't in the picture, but still there was something in the natural setting that tended toward drawing our hearts together to each other, and at the time I didn't know it, but to God too. It was a natural setting. Day unto day utter His speech, Psalms 19 verse 2. The heavens declare the glory of God, that's verse 1. Nature begins to speak to the heart, and it calls us to look up heavenward. And as you see the stars and the moon and all of these things, you get an experience like David had in Psalms 8 in those first 2 or 3 verses. So we were getting ready to launch out. And sometimes, Genesis 12 verse 1, God called Abraham out of his father's house. "Get ye out of your father's house." It's best sometimes to separate from family relationships, friends, and a bad environment. Sometimes the relationships back home may not be the best. And so that was also an aspect of our decision. I wanted a new clean start. And Darlene, she just was after something too. We were looking for something. Didn't know where it was, didn't know how to find it. But we thought this might be a step towards something better, and my dear friends, it was. It was really the first major turning point in my life. A turning point is when life changes. I've had 4 or 5 of those in my life, and I think that was the first one. The decision to get out of downtown Atlanta, to get out of the city, and to get out into the country, something natural. Even though there are no creature comforts, even though it was like wilderness living, there was something in it that appealed to us, and what it was, the thought of having something real in our lives. And we thought we need to prepare for this experience. We need to build a house. So I got a book. It was called House Building Illustrated. The title appealed to me. Got a book, House Building Illustrated, and I thought I'm going to build myself a house using this book. Darlene got some books on gardening. I think one of them was Ruth Stout's No Work Gardening. And that title was not true. There was a lot of work in gardening. So you're going to build a house, going to have a garden, grow our own food. Darlene had a book on wild foods, how to spot things out in the woods that you can eat, you can live on, what you can pick and find. And that was a challenge. But Darlene had the book and a willingness to go out and look for breakfast. And so we did. We took our books, we got our camp stove, packed up the station wagon, got unhooked from school, rented out our house, said goodbye to the city. Off we went into the wilderness. We pulled up there in Mentone, Alabama, 20 acres of land, a Ford station wagon, a lot of big ideas, but a desire to find something better than we'd had in the city. And, you know, at the time I didn't know it, but you know, the bigger picture. God was leading in our lives, trying to separate us from influences that led us away from Him and get us into a quiet place, a natural place where He could speak to our hearts, that He could speak through the birds singing, through the sunshine and the trees and the flowers, and He could speak peace to our hearts. And so I got some tools. Darlene began to garden. I began to build. And dear friends, it was an educational experience. You know, in some ways, well, I think that was the best education I've ever had, just a simple, natural life out there in the country. And then that was how it started. God bless you and give you the desire of your heart today.